Given it's so cold, given it's so wet in London, I feel a bit guilty about saying on this podcast, welcome to Barbados. Listen, we are here. I mean, we can't say anything. We're here. We're in the Eastern Caribbean, so that's where the story was. It's where we had to come.
It is where the story is, but I do feel guilty. Every time I've called London this week, I just say, oh, hello, I'm with Chris, not the location, because I don't want to say the words. I'm in Barbados because it is really rather lovely and very warm and very beautiful.
It's lovely, it's warm, it's beautiful, and we didn't come here for a holiday though. We did come here to work, and we have actually been working. I just feel like I need to point that out.
I actually feel like I could maybe stay here for another week and have a holiday off the back of...
That would be quite nice. And it's actually quite hard to point out that just because you are in a sunny clime doesn't mean to say you're not working. I should just say that to anyone on the news desk that might be watching this. Anyway, welcome to the podcast. ITV News is best and only an original podcast, we like to think, don't we?
We do, yes. We do. And our 101st episode.
101st episode, so not a bad place to do it from. We failed last week to get champagne. We should have some rum, really. I've actually got a bottle over there, but I'm not going to share it with you. So we get back to matters in hand. Matters in hand are that we are talking to you from the world's newest republic. On Sunday and Monday when we were here, this was a realm. The Queen was the head of state. When Prince Charles arrived here, he was a prince of the realm. He was a future king of Barbados. It all changed on Monday night. Monday
night at midnight, the Queen was officially removed as head of state and the country had its first ever president sworn in.
So, the clock struck midnight. We were standing in a ceremony in the middle of Bridgetown, which is the main town in Barbados, which the man at the rum distillery just said to me is called Bridgetown because it's a town with bridges.
Simple as that.
They like to keep things simple in Barbados. So what should we sit? I mean, there's quite a lot to discuss here. There's the whole thing about we went from 16 realms to 15. The Queen's now been removed to head of state. Was this a snub? Is it the unfinished business of independence? Was Prince Charles right to come here? He mentioned slavery while he was here because that's a stain, as he said, on Britain's past. There's a lot to unpick here. You know, I suppose a lot of people need it explained because some people I saw in some copy were calling this their Independence Day, wasn't it? It was their kind of Republic Day. They got independence 55 years ago in 1966, but kept the Queen as head of state. And this was kind of seen as the unfinished business of independence, wasn't it? So let's start at the very beginning and let's show you some picture of when Prince Charles arrived here. He arrived here very late on Sunday night our time, very early in the morning your time, on Monday, which might explain why he was so tired, and we'll come to that imminently because the cameraman that's filming this podcast also filmed those pictures of Prince Charles looking very tired indeed. But I think that's totally understandable, and I'll admit to being rather jet-lagged in that ceremony as well. So he arrived here, stepped off the plane. He was met by the Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, the one who's really led the campaign for this place to be a republic, but also the woman who was at the time the president-elect of this country, now, as we speak to you, the president, Sandra Mason. And his departure and his arrival were two different things. He sort of arrived a future king of Barbados, and he left just like a visiting royal from a foreign country.
Yeah, he arrived very late, as you say, about 20 to midnight on Sunday, and there was a guard of honour for him and a 21-gun salute, which scared the living daylights out of us. It was incredibly loud.
They were loud and rather close.
And they played both anthems, didn't they, when he arrived?
Yeah. Whereas that wouldn't happen because the national anthem of this country is also his national anthem, exactly. Or was at that time. So I think things will change when
on
he
departure.
next
I think it's
here.
just
the
his
British
national anthem that they play.
Exactly.
Yeah,
because it's not his national anthem. I suppose what changes, I mean, every Barbadian we spoke to, at first there was a little bit of indifference, but I think those we spoke to at the event were kind of saying, do you know what, this is a moment, this is a time, this is our time, this is a moment to sort of step out onto the world stage, to sort of, unshackle ourselves from the British monarchy.
Yeah, there was a lot of apathy about it, about the moment of removing the Queen as head of state, and I think that's because people feel like she's so far removed from their lives here, and lots of people sort of thought, well, why is the Queen that lives all these many miles away
from London while I'm here
in the lovely warmth, but they feel like, well, why is the Queen our head of state when she's so far away?
Yeah.
Was probably.
And why can't a Barbadian be a head of state? Which actually,
Exactly.
was an argument they can have in Australia and New Zealand.
Well, yeah, and the question is now the knock-on.
Grenada.
What other countries look at Barbados and think, oh, if Barbados can do it, will we follow suit?
But other countries need to have a referendum in order to do it, whereas they don't here, do they? So let's talk. I mean, a couple of things on the Monday. So we were sort of filming about the moment happening, the anticipation of it, and we spoke to some people about what they thought about Prince Charles's arrival here, and there was one chap in particular who was not very impressed at all the fact he was coming.
I would say that the overall kind of response that we've had while we've been here is one of, well,
mild indifference, but
there are some, and we should just say some, not, it's definitely not the majority in our experience, that didn't think that Prince Charles should have been here and felt like actually he maybe should have stayed away for that moment.
Yeah. So that was a chap who represents a group who's particularly opposed to Prince Charles. He's called David Denny.
Yeah.
Have a listen to what David Denny told us about Prince Charles's visit here and why in particular, and this again goes back to slavery, why in particular he thought Prince Charles shouldn't be here at all. Should Prince Charles be in Barbados this week?
No.
Should he be taking part in the handover ceremony?
No. Prince Charles should not be here in Barbados or participated in any ceremony.
And what should he do?
Just stay in England.
And apologise?
And apologise. The royal family benefited financially in a very big way from slavery. So that the first thing the royal family must do is apologise to the people of Barbados, and then they must also pay a reparation for the damage that was done to African people.
And his view was kind of contrasted with, I'd say, from the majority of Barbadians we spoke to, those we put on air, but those we sort of spoke to at the hotel, and those we sort of spoke to in places that we've been to, kind of contrasted with their view of actually, no, we're glad this is happening, but actually it's quite polite to invite Prince Charles because it's kind of like saying, look, there is no animosity, we just want to do this.
And for Prince Charles, he said in his speech on Monday night, sort of early hours of Tuesday morning by the time he spoke, how delighted and deeply touched he was to have been invited here and how important he feels that relationship is going forward between the UK and Barbados. It still remains a member of the Commonwealth, one of the 54 member states of the Commonwealth.
Yeah. Now when you have to do Vox Popses here, you've got a choice. You can do the Vox Popses on the beach or you can do Vox Pops on the beach. So we did a Vox Pop
on the beach.
On the beach. I just have a listen to this lovely lady we met called Beverly, who was here with some friends on the beach, sort of quite late on Sunday night, wasn't it? Who had a sort of, yes, we need to talk about reparations. She said, yes, this is time for us to be independent, but did it in a very non-antagonistic way, I believe, is the best way.
Yeah, I'd say that would be most people's attitude. I think David Denny, who you've just heard from, had a very strong view, but most people, I think, were more like Beverly.
No disrespect to her, but I just think it's just where we are in our future.
It's kind of time.
It's time, yes.
It's time to sever a link that goes back to the colonies and the British Empire.
Yes. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just progress and moving forward, and for people to feel a sense of self.
So what then changes? I mean, you could say, well, the Queen's not on the banknotes here, about the Barbadian dollar, which is roughly about double the amount of a US dollar, isn't it? So if something costs 20 US dollars, it's 40 Barbadian.
So she's not on the money and she's not on the stamps. But the things that will change, the government will be sworn in the name of a republic rather than taking an oath of allegiance to the Queen.
Right. So just a bit like the politicians in the UK swear an oath of allegiance to the Queen, the military do as well.
Yeah.
That kind of thing will have to change.
Government House will now change to State House. That's the president's, the new president's house. The buttons on uniforms will change. And the prison will no longer be Her Majesty's prison.
I did note, though, we were at a reception yesterday and the Royal Police Force was still called the Royal Police Force and no one had scrubbed out Royal.
They did say to us that there are some things to be ironed out and worked out what they do going forward.
But I think they're setting up a kind of constitutional commission in the new year so they can look at all these things. Okay, what do we want to change? What names do we want to change and all the rest of it? And it's like, for example, you can no longer call a prison Her Majesty's prison because it ain't Her Majesty's prison anymore because she's no longer the head of state here. But I think that what the key change is that our Barbadian can be a head of state here now, whereas previously that wasn't possible. And for a country which is predominantly black, why is it that they had a white queen who is a head of state who lived in London?
And I think the most visually representative moment of this kind of change was the flag during that ceremony. The Queen's standard was lowered for the final time because it won't go up again because she's no longer head of state here. So it was a very
this is the flag coming down, the
Yeah.
Queen's standard coming down, and then kind of wrapped up and rolled away. And I don't know what we were asking. What do they do with it? They stick it in the bin? Do they hand it to Prince Charles and say you can take that back to London, or do they put it in the museum for to represent their history? Which is
I hope the
quite
museum.
something. Yeah, and actually talking of history in the museum, we went to the statue of a statue, or former statue I should say, which is in the square where they held these celebrations, and it was last year that they took the statue down. Who was the statue of?
Lord Nelson.
Admiral Lord Nelson, erected by the British colonial rulers here in 1813 to celebrate the famous victory at the Battle of Trafalgar. But last year it was decided, because of Admiral Lord Nelson's vocal support for slavery, obviously before he died, they decided we didn't want that up there anymore. So what you've now got is
An empty plinth. Yeah.
well, actually, here's the piece to camera that I did at said plinth. From 1813 until last year, right here stood a bronze statue of Admiral Lord Nelson, first erected by the British rulers, but taken down by Barbados in part because of his defence of the slave trade. So that statue is now in a museum, and there was another statue actually which was the first Prime Minister of Barbados. So when Barbados got independence from Britain, when it stopped being a colony in 1966, there was the first Prime Minister, Errol Barrow. And at that statue we found this little 9-year-old girl who was doing a school project, wasn't she, Janique? And she spoke to us about actually why is the Queen in London, kind of thing, and talked about white people, because she's obviously been learning about slavery. White people in the past have done many bad things.
Yeah, and I thought for a 9-year-old, she spoke very eloquently about it, and she said, the Queen is nice as far as she was concerned, and but she couldn't understand why somebody that lived so many miles away and was white and didn't represent her, why was she?
And that's coming
Head
from a
of
9.
state
So this is what
here.
Janique told us.
A long time ago in slavery, when the white people used to rule, always used to treat bad people bad. It don't make no sense we having a queen that's so far away. She is the queen of the second, right?
Queen Elizabeth II.
Yeah.
Yes. I think she's nice, but I don't like being on the control of somebody. I like being on the control of myself.
So ceremony time. I mean, the ceremony was a big party. Actually, I felt really, really sorry for everybody here, and actually everyone in the world at the moment, that they weren't able to have the party that they wanted to have in a big stadium. I think where they planned to have it was because COVID.
Yeah, I think they were anticipating in the run up to this and all the plans that there would potentially be thousands of people filling the square, and there would be a really big atmosphere, but because of COVID, as you say, it was reduced to just a couple of hundred people.
But there was still a party.
There was still a party, and it got going very
Yeah,
earlier than we
very
got there.
Good, yeah. Here's some pictures of the party that Jake, the cameraman, filmed, where people were having lots of celebrations.
So it was great. We got there ahead of the Prince of Wales as per normal, and got to enjoy this amazing spectacle.
Well, we always get to these places well before the royals, and we often say, why are we here so early? Because they ain't turning up for another 2 hours.
This was great.
And
we got to sit and watch all these amazing
Yes.
performances.
Actually, some of the people who were in the performance were on stilts, as you probably saw from those pictures just now. So we said earlier, when you do a vox pop, well, you do it on the beach. But this particular vox pop I decided to do on a stilt. So when you actually see this lady I was talking to, you'll realise why she was up there.
Chris looks like he's shrunk.
And I was down here. But this gives you a kind of flavour, I think, of just what people think about the moment here of getting rid of the Queen.
Focus on us being us and not just a little England anymore. We're not little England anymore. We're Barbados. We are us. And
It's time to have a president and not a queen, yeah?
Yeah.
We basically want to put Barbados on the world map. I attribute it to like a teenager deciding, well, we're going to leave under our parents' nest and basically go out there into the bigger world and chart our own path and see what the world has to offer.
So they were performers actually as part of the ceremony, and the ceremony itself was a lengthy one. It kind of started, way before we got there, but it went on to about 1:30 in the morning. Prince Charles arrived, Rihanna was there,
Yeah.
cricket legends, Sir Garfield, Gary Sobers was there. They're both national heroes, by the way. And actually, Rihanna was made a national hero. Here's the moment she walked up in her orange dress, and she was honoured by the Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, who told her that she should keep shining light like a diamond.
Shining bright like a diamond.
Right, shining bright like a diamond.
We did have to play the
there was a Spotify
playlist about Rihanna
Spotify.
songs. We did,
and we have been singing Umbrella Ella.
We have.
Ella quite a bit,
have.
haven't we?
Yes.
Anyway, here's the moment the Prime Minister said that Rihanna was going to be made a national hero. Rihanna, of course, being a Beijing, someone from Barbados, is now a national hero of this new republic.
Ambassador Robin Rihanna Fenty, may you continue to shine like a diamond and bring honor to your nation.
So when you get rid of a queen, you've got to replace the queen with someone. Who do you replace the queen with? Well, the president. Now, the president here was the former Governor General, which is the queen's representative. If you are a realm like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, they all have a Governor General, which is the queen's representative in that area. She, or the last one, was Sandra Mason, Dame Sandra Mason. She was then nominated to be the president. I presume because there's some sort of smooth transition then. There's no great change.
So when Charles arrived in National Hero Square, he arrived a prince of the realm, didn't he? And it was all very ceremonial. He arrived, he sat on the dais, didn't he? There was a march past, a final salute to the monarchy.
But then he got ejected from the dais.
And then he had to leave the dais and join everyone else, and later that's where the new president sat.
Exactly. It was kind of like sort of a game of musical chairs in which there's only one chair and there's only space for either a representative of the former colonial power or the new president of the republic. And at midnight, it changed.
Yeah, at midnight, Dame Sandra Mason became the new president, and she spoke, didn't she? She gave a speech about that moment.
Colonial past to the independent nation to the future of the new republic. I have become president, the first president of the Republic of Barbados, which I have sworn to serve faithfully.
Now let's talk about Prince Charles's speech, because obviously, yes, friendship, you know, I love this country, I used to come here when I was in the Navy, blah, 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 blah. But the key bit of the speech, the bit that everybody used, was his not apology for slavery, but his recognition that this was a very dark period of British history. Yeah,
he recognised, as he said, the darkest days of our past, the appalling atrocities of slavery, which forever stains our history. So yeah, as you say, not an apology, but a recognition of the country's history. And this is something he's done before. He made a speech a few years ago in Ghana, didn't he, where he also spoke about slavery.
Yeah, apparently it was from we weren't there because it was straight after the Harry and Meghan tour of Australia, wasn't it? But he made a speech from one of the forts in Ghana, and it was kind of what's called like a door of no return or something, through which slaves would pass to be loaded on to the slave ships to be brought to this side of the Atlantic for that dreadful, terrible, appalling, atrocious slave trade. Which went on for some 200 years. In Barbados's case, Barbados basically ships came here from England in 1625 when James I was still on the throne. But the slave trade kind of started in the middle of that century, in about sort of 1650, went on, and it wasn't made illegal until 1834. So you're talking about a period of just under 200 years in which slaves from West Africa were brought to this island to work in the plantations and the sugar plantations, and the big debate this will now go on to is whether or not the slave trade, which in a large part contributed to Britain's wealth, and also, as we heard David Denny say earlier, to the royal family's wealth, is now the moment to be talking about compensation, or is known as reparations for that period of time. Yeah, and that's potentially the debate now, isn't it? As you say, going forward, what next? So anyway, so we listen to Prince Charles. Have we done that yet? We haven't done that yet. I lost track of where I was. Let's play Prince Charles.
I was so deeply touched that you should have invited me to return to Barbados and to join you on behalf of the Queen at this moment of such significance for your remarkable nation. The creation of this republic offers a new beginning, but it also marks a point on a continuum, a milestone on the long road you have not only travelled, but which you have built. From the darkest days of our past and the appalling atrocity of slavery, which forever stains our history, the people of this island forged their path with extraordinary fortitude. Emancipation, self-government, and independence were your waypoints. Freedom, justice, and self-determination have been your guides. Your long journey has brought you to this moment, not as your destination, but as a vantage point from which to survey a new horizon. This is an occasion to reaffirm the friendship I have enjoyed with Barbados since I first visited the island over 50 years ago, and then again while serving in the Royal Navy on the then West Indies station. Across the decades, I have admired so much of what you have achieved and all you have come to represent. I have heard your voice in the world grow louder, advocating with clarity, passion, and authority on issues of global significance. I've seen the power of the indomitable Beijing spirit, both at home and overseas, including through the invaluable contribution to our public life of the Barbadian diaspora in the United Kingdom. I remain deeply committed to this very special country and to your future prosperity and well-being. I shall always consider myself a friend of Barbados. Madam President, Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, tonight you write the next chapter of your nation's story, adding to the treasury of past achievement, collective enterprise, and personal courage, which already fill its pages. Yours is a story in which every Barbadian, young and old, can take the greatest pride, inspired by what has come before them and confident about what lies ahead. As we will sing tonight, you are the guardians of your heritage, firm craftsmen of your fate.
So that was his goodbye. Just on a slightly lighter note, while we're on this point, cameraman who sat behind this cameraman now, Jake, also filmed Prince Charles sort of doing that a little bit. And there's been a few news articles around about it.
I mean, you know, he's only human, right? And
73.
And we are in Barbados, we are 4 hours behind the UK. We'd had a couple of days to acclimatise, ahead of him to acclimatise to the time zone. And, you know, I think, as I say, he's only human.
Yeah, exactly. So, so we see the pictures. Basically, I think he acknowledged, or suddenly was alerted that he was falling asleep, and he basically looked at his programme as quickly as I could. So, anyway, have a watch, see what you make of it. I'll also admit to being very tired, and there was a point that despite the fireworks being played, some really loud music, I also found myself slightly nodding off as well, because for our body clocks, we were on about sort of 5 o'clock in the morning by then, half 5, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Same as Prince Charles's.
Exactly. And it was really loud music and big fireworks. And I did find myself actually momentarily.
The fireworks, actually, and we can show you the pictures, were really spectacular, weren't they? They lit up Bridgetown. It was an amazing
they were
finale.
happening around the island. So well, who doesn't want to see some fireworks? Here you go.
Exactly.
Interestingly, and Prince Charles never makes a speech without mentioning climate change. He didn't mention the Sustainable Markets Initiative, but we're all relieved by that. But on a serious note, Barbados is one of those small island states which is likely to be affected by rising sea levels. And the Prime Minister here, Mia Mottley, has made very significant speeches recently at the United Nations General Assembly, also at COP26 in Glasgow, where she spoke about the fact that the West has released all this carbon into the atmosphere. The West has, through industrialisation, created the problem, and it's places like Barbados that are suffering the consequences. And as you heard Prince Charles say in his speech, is something that he wants to continue to work with Barbados on.
And he says it's meant a great deal to him to have worked alongside governments to address the challenges facing small island states like Barbados due to kind of the climate emergency. So I have no doubt that that will continue despite the fact he's no longer Prince of the realm.
So we also spoke to the British High Commissioner here. I suddenly think actually we've been quite busy the last few days when you think about all the things that we've spoken to and all the things we've done.
Not a holiday, not
exactly.
a holiday. Yeah.
So we spoke to the British High Commissioner here, who's called Scott Furston Wood, who actually used to work for Prince Charles himself. But he was talking about, again, going back to the point about slavery and that stain on British history. We were talking to him about, the issue of reparations and and whether there was an apology needed or sorrow required because of that period. This is what he said about that particular issue.
And he acknowledges that in his speech tonight. He acknowledges that painful, dark aspect to the past and talks about the long way that Barbados has come on, that long road from those very, very dark days of the past to a future now, which is one of opportunity for young people in this region. And he's very pleased that he can, in a small way, support that future.
So we mentioned earlier about Rihanna being made a national hero alongside the other national hero, Gary Sobers. Many people remember him from the late 60s, early 70s, a fantastic cricketer for Barbados and for the West Indies. They were both speaking the day after the event about it. Rihanna sort of talking about her disbelief that she was able to see this day, and also Gary Sobers told us about why his affection for the Queen will never change. And Gary was at that event that we were at, which was with Prince Charles and the new president, as she was on that day.
The reception to mark the new Republic on its first day, and it was held at the newly named State House rather than Government House.
So listen to Rihanna first. This is what Rihanna said about the whole thing, and how proud she is to be a Beijing, and how she is really pleased to be named a national hero. And then listen to Gary Sobers, so Garfield Sobers, talk about why his affection for the Queen will never change. And there's a clue here. It involves horses.
This is a day that I would never, ever forget. It's also a day that I never saw coming. People, man, the people, y'all are the true heroes of Barbados. And I take y'all with me wherever I go. I'm so proud to be a Bajan. I'm gonna be a Bajan till the day I die. This is still the only place I've ever called home. I love Barbados, I love you guys, and I pray that the youth continue to push Barbados forward. Nothing compares to being recognized in the soil that you grew in. So I thank you so much for this.
The Queen has been tremendous as far as I'm concerned, because she loves what I love, race horses. And I have been fortunate to spend time over there.
Talking of horses, you should go on to, have you put any of these pictures on your
I
social
haven't
media?
yet, but I'm going
to. So
to.
Lizzie is going to, by the time this podcast goes live, go
I
on to
will.
Lizzie's Instagram, presumably?
Yes, Instagram,
Which
Lizzie
is?
Robinson ITV.
Lizzie Robinson ITV, where she will post some pictures of some horses in the sea. Because it's something they do every morning.
Every morning there's a racetrack not that far from where we are now, and every morning they bring the racehorses down to the sea, just up from where we're staying, and they take them in the sea swimming to cool down and wash them off. And they're there
so you
from
have to
about
be there at 6 in the morning or something?
I think from about sort of 5:30 onwards they're there. So yeah,
We'll explain why you had so little sleep one night.
I potted down to go and see them. I was on UK time, so I was awake anyway, and I thought I'd make the most of it. So walked down the beach and got to see them all in the sea, which is quite an amazing spectacle.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can add some of my photos to the.
Now, has anything royal been going on at home while we've been here? William has made a visit, hasn't he, to Leeds to see some refugees from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't actually seen any of the pictures. I don't know why I'm talking about it and putting it in the podcast because I haven't seen it. But
there was also
there will be pictures, and we will put them up about now. But I mean, no, I think I jested because I haven't had time to look at the story. But I think a very important visit to a hostel where some of the refugees from Afghanistan who did manage to escape in August went. So that was one visit that's been going on. I'm not aware of any.
And then we also
others.
had the second episode of The Princes and the Press, which is the BBC Two documentary. The first one got a lot of press coverage, didn't it, because of that statement from the palace that we spoke about last week. And I think we were all anticipating that the second episode might throw up even more. It was sort of expected.
So either the BBC went and what's the word?
Watered it down?
Watered it down, yeah, there's another word, like declassified it or something, you know, like did something to it to make it a little bit more palatable for the palaces, or they didn't really have very much in the first place, and perhaps the palace shouldn't have put out that statement last week, which made it more of a story because they were in a fight with the BBC, and as we spoke to you last week and has been confirmed this week, this carol concert that's been ripped off the BBC and given to ITV, which will be aired just before Christmas Day.
Yes, so it's been confirmed by Kensington Palace this week. It will, the concert will take place on the 8th of December and then will air in later December, and we understand it's around the 23rd, 24th, don't we?
Yeah, so you managed to watch a bit of it. I was trying to watch a bit of that BBC documentary here, but the Wi-Fi wasn't.
I have to say it wasn't, I mean,
well,
certainly all the fuss around it, all the noise around it, I was expecting it to be quite controversial, and it wasn't at all. And you know, we were told that they were editing right up to the wire, so perhaps some of the more controversial stuff was taken out.
Yeah, the statement in it was the same one that the palace gave last week, which is that you are giving credibility to unfounded claims from unnamed sources. So we told you all about that last week. And there will be a development this week in the Meghan Markle versus Mail on Sunday case. That is not happened as we speak to you. When you watch this, it might well have happened. So we'll have updates for you on our website, but that case is coming back to the Court of Appeal. I won't get into it in any detail now because it might already have happened by the time this gets published, but nevertheless,
the Men on Sunday are basically appealing for the case, rather than it to be a summary judgment where it doesn't go to trial. They are appealing for it to go to trial, and there was that 3-day hearing, wasn't there, where there was new evidence submitted from Jason Canal.
Right.
So we've got the judgment tomorrow, which is Thursday.
So are we done?
I think we are.
Fine. We're in a republic.
So we arrived and it was a realm, we leave and it's a republic. It was quite a moment of history to watch. Yeah, and I think.
And how many more will we be watching in the?
Well, that's the question now. How many of the other realms follow suit? How many look at Barbados and?
It's certainly been enjoyable. It's been hard work. Have you enjoyed it, Jake?
Yeah, every second.
Jake's enjoyed it. And we've enjoyed his pictures. So all the pictures that you've been watching, or most of them on this podcast, have all come from Jake. So thank you, Jake, for your pictures.
Jake.
The Republic of Barbados, beautiful place. If you ever get a chance to come here, I thoroughly recommend it.
It's been really
I'd
lovely.
like to come back on leisure time rather than work time. And there's a definite Barbados time about this place, whether it's getting taxis, whether it's organising events, if it's getting people to do interviews, if it's like even just driving from one place to another. How long will that take? Well, 5 minutes. It takes like 20. There's a thing called Barbados time, which is a lot slower than real time, shall we say. Great if you're on holiday, not quite so good if you've got deadlines and working and things, but we managed.
We've managed. It's been really good to be here.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us. We'll be back in literally the cold and the freezing rain of London very soon. We were talking to some people here, like from other northern climes, like New York. We found some people on the beach from New York the other day, or from Canada. I think all of us Northern Europeans and Northern Americans are like very jealous of the climate that they have in this part of the world. So
yes.
Anyway, so from the Eastern Caribbean, from the new Republic of Barbados, from the former realm of Barbados, from the former colony, the place where the Queen used to be the head of state. Thanks for watching. See you next week.